Yeah, look, tell me what's the vibes, what's the mood. Yeah, I just hit a mic for.
Salut tout le monde et bienvenue à cet épisode du podcast. Mon nom est Joey Alfieri. Welcome everybody. It's the official podcast of the Montreal Alouettes. It is the podcast. It's a special episode as we'll be joined by former Al slotback Ben Cahoooooooon, who will be at the stadium on July 14th. You don't want to miss that. He's going to be joined by other members of the 2002 Grey Cup winning team, and they will be honored before the game, at halftime, and in the post game. So you definitely don't want to miss them. And you have an opportunity if you're coming to the stadium. You can buy some old autographed gear, or I shouldn't say old now. I guess I'm getting old. It's retro gear, and you'll be able to pick that stuff up. You might have some Cahoon jerseys there available. Calvillo jerseys are going to be available. Scott Flory as well. There's going to be some items with the old logo on it, so you don't want to miss that. If you're coming in, if you come in early, I know they're going to be giving away some team pictures from 2002 that you'll be able to get signed by Ben and others that are going to be in attendance. But we will be joined by Ben Cahoooooooon fairly shortly here. He was kind enough to join me a little bit earlier on. Oui, alors c'est un épisode spécial du podcast aujourd'hui. Écoute, on va parler à l'ancien receveur, joueur temple de la renommée, Ben Cahoooooooon, qui va se joindre à nous momentanément. Écoute, si vous n'êtes pas là, si vous n'avez pas vos billets pour le match du 14 juillet qui s'en vient rapidement, écoute, il faudrait les acheter là, parce que ça va être une soirée inoubliable. Premièrement, c'est Edmonton qui rentre dans le stade et c'est toute une rivalité avec les Alouettes, ça. Et on va célébrer le 20e anniversaire de l'équipe qui a gagné la Coupe Grey en 2002, notamment contre ces Eskimos-là. Donc, c'est une soirée à ne pas manquer. Ben Cahoooooooon sera sur place avec plusieurs autres joueurs. On parle de Éric Lapointe, Sylvain Girard, Uzuma Okeke, Scott Flory, Pat Woodcock, Jermaine Copeland. Donc, il y aura beaucoup de joueurs présents. Aussi, on va avoir de la marchandise rétro des Alouettes de ces années-là. Donc, il va y avoir plein de stocks en vente aux boutiques officielles des Alouettes. Et écoute, ça, je me souviens très bien de cette Coupe Grey-là parce que premièrement, c'était la première Coupe Grey que les Alouettes ont gagnée en 25 ans. Évidemment, c'était la première Coupe Grey après qu'ils sont revenus à Montréal de Baltimore. Donc, c'était très, très spécial. Je me souviens de la parade et je raconte cette histoire assez souvent, mais j'ai eu le droit, je blâme personne, là, mais j'ai eu le droit de rater l'école cette journée-là. C'était fin novembre, il faisait tellement froid. J'étais avec mon père, mon frère, mon cousin. On était tout jeunes, les trois, et mon père nous a amenés à la parade au centre-ville. Écoute, c'était un moment tellement spécial. Là, je m'en souviendrai tout le temps. C'est vraiment des beaux souvenirs qui sortent de cette soirée-là. C'était un après-midi, mais écoute, la parade était vraiment spéciale. Je pense que j'ai lu cette semaine qu'il y avait plus que 250 000 personnes au centre-ville pour la parade, là. Donc, c'était vraiment, c'était vraiment spécial pour moi parce que moi, en tant que jeune homme, écoute, je m'en rappelle de la Coupe Stanley des Canadiens en 93, mais j'étais tout petit. J'avais 3 ou 4 ans. Alors, c'était la première fois qu'une équipe montréalaise gagne un championnat pendant que j'étais jeune. Donc, c'était vraiment spécial pour moi, cette Coupe Grey-là. Écoute, le match était absolument incroyable. C'était un match serré, mais les Alouettes avaient le devant pour quasiment toute la rencontre. Mais quand même, c'était un match qui était balancé, équilibre, si je peux dire. Là. Écoute, les Eskimos n'étaient jamais sortis de la rencontre. Donc, je m'en rappellerai toujours du toucher de Pat Woodcock, du toucher de Jermaine Copeland, sur une belle passe de Calvillo avec un bloc immense de Ben Cahoon. Puis je vais parler de ce bloc-là à Ben quand il va joindre à nous momentanément. Mais il y a aussi le botté court, le toucher sur botté court de Copeland. Alors c'était très spécial. Et évidemment en défensive, il y avait plusieurs gros jeux, mais le converti de 2 points en fin de match où Ricky Ray avait la chance de je pense que c'était 18-16 à ce moment-là et les Eskimos tentaient un placement de 2 points et c'est Tim Strickland qui a rabattu un ballon qui était, je pense que c'était pour Terry Vaughn qui a joué pour les Alouettes une couple d'années après cela, cette rencontre-là. Donc c'était tout un match vraiment spécial et j'ai vraiment hâte de fêter cette journée-là le 14 juillet contre les Hawks. So it was going to be a real special night, and I remember that Grey Cup for a number of reasons in 2002 because it was the first time in my lifetime that a Montreal team had really won a championship. I mean, I remember the Canadiens winning the Stanley Cup in 1993, but I hadn't turned 4 yet, so I was actually 3 years old, about to turn 4. So I mean, I do have some memories of that Stanley Cup run, but really in 2002 was the first time I was old enough to remember a team winning a championship in Montreal. So real cool. I got to miss school, went to the Grey Cup parade with my dad, my brother, and my cousin in late November. It was freezing that day. I'll never forget that, but I think I was reading some old articles now in the last couple of weeks, and I think they said there was about 250,000 people plus in attendance at that Grey Cup. And we'll ask Ben Cahoon about that. We'll ask Ben Cahoon about the game and just what he remembers specifically from the parade. But that game that was a tight game. I think the Owls had the lead pretty much from start to finish. And I actually rewatched it not too long ago, just getting ready for some of the interviews that I'm doing. But it was Montreal jumps out to an 8-0 lead on a 99-yard touchdown from Anthony Calvillo to Pat Woodcock, which was really special because it was a Grey Cup record at the time, longest touchdown. And it was 2017, I believe it was beaten because Devere Posey had a 100-yard touchdown for the Toronto Argonauts. But, at the time, there had never been a touchdown in the Grey Cup longer than 90 yards. And Pat Woodcock managed to hit a 99-yard touchdown. It was special. The performance from Jermaine Copeland was out of this world. It's one of my favorites growing up. I was crushed when Jermaine Copeland left in free agency to sign with Calgary. But, that performance, he had the long catch and run where Ben Cahoon had that key block that sprung Copeland free. And Copeland also had the onside kick return for a touchdown as well that basically iced the game, put the Alouettes up by 2 scores, and that's what sealed the deal. Of course, there was other big plays in that game defensively. I mean, Tim Strickland at the end, when Ricky Ray and the Eskimos are driving and they score the touchdown, and they go for 2 to tie the game, and Tim Strickland knocks the ball away from Terry Vaughn. I mean, that was an absolute, that was a massive play, and it obviously forced the onside kick, or else we're probably looking at overtime in that game. But there's so many special memories. There's going to be a lot of the players who were on that team, some local guys, some guys are going to come up from the States as well. But Fleury's going to be around. Okiki should be around as well. Pat Woodcock will be there. Jermaine Copeland's going to be there. There's a bunch of Bruno Happel, Sylvain Girard, Eric Lapointe. The list goes on and on. So there's going to be, quite a few players. So we're expecting upwards of more than a dozen players are going to show up to celebrate the 20th anniversary of that Grey Cup win. And there's going to be some retro gear for sale, like I mentioned earlier. But right now, c'est le temps de parler à l'ancien receveur des Alouettes de Montréal, une légende, an absolute legend, Ben Cahoon. Ben, what's going on? How are you?
Really well, thank you. It's great to talk to you. I'm excited for the chance to come back to Montreal next week.
We're really excited to have you. When was the last time you were in Montreal?
It's been a year or two since right before COVID.
Right.
Really, I was up in Montreal and Quebec for some work, and was hoping I was making plans to come to a game probably 2019, but obviously that didn't work out.
Okay. Well, listen, we're really excited to get you in the building again. Of course, we're celebrating the 20-year anniversary of the '02 Grey Cup game. And I guess before we get into the specifics of what happened in the game, take me through the conditions. Take me through having to play Edmonton in Edmonton. Just how challenging was that? How difficult was that?
The conditions were extremely challenging, and it had bad storms the week of the game. It warmed up, I think, a day or two before the game, which melted all the snow, and then it froze. And I know we did our walkthrough the day before the game, and it was an ice rink. So we were freaking out a little bit, and I was probably the worst. I remember I talked to our equipment manager, Ronnie James, at the time, and I said, dude, we got to get different cleats. We got to bring in some different cleats. So he spent most of the night trying to get some different cleats with a different bottom that might grip a little bit better. So he did amazing work, got some new shoes for us, some different options that also did not work. So I caused him a lot of loss of sleep that night, and frankly, it didn't work. I remember I changed my shoes several times during the game, back and forth, just trying to get a little bit of grip. But that field was slick.
And the crowd, from a crowd perspective, like in your mind, I know you don't have obviously you don't have the numbers, but in your mind, what was the split in terms of, people cheering on Edmonton, people cheering on Montreal? How loud did it get in the building?
I don't know. It had to have been 95%, I imagine. But it was definitely a home game for Edmonton. It doesn't happen often that the home team, is hosting the Grey Cup. So it's crazy that it does not happen more often. But the stars aligned for Edmonton that year, and they had a big party the whole week, and we crashed the party, thankfully.
Yeah. So after, I know you guys made the Grey Cup in 2000, but you win it in 2002. In your mind, is that the start of the, that, because to me, that's a dynasty. You guys won 3 times. You played 8 Grey Cups in 11 years. Does it start in 2002, the foundation for the success that was to come?
Well, it was definitely a turning point, and it gave us confidence. I think the biggest difference was Don Matthews came in, and he just shot us full of confidence, and there was just the magic that is Don Matthews, and we had that extra element to Don, in our back pocket, and we knew that he was going to pull out some scheme the morning of the game, or make some adjustment during the game that was going to be a difference maker. So that was definitely a turning point. We'd been there, we'd been close, we'd lost, and then we finally proved that we could get it done in 2002. We subsequently, went to many other Grey Cup games, championship games, and did not win. So it was every year it was just a different story and a different battle. But that was definitely a turning point.
I know with the media, I mean, growing up as a fan, I saw Don through the lens of the media, and he was very, very prickly. But I know that you guys all kept saying, players coach, he's a guy that the players love. Like, can you take me behind the scenes into the room? Like, what was Don Matthews really like with the group?
I can't. It's not family friendly. But he was a character, and he had a shtick. He was prickly with the media. That's a great way to say it. But it was for a reason. He tried to protect the players. He took the arrows for us, and he liked to be the center of attention. But he was also, there was method to the madness, and he was protecting us and allowing us to just be relaxed and just play the game. But he was a character. He was a player's coach. He was just as immature as any of us were, and his deal was just come to play on game day, and he didn't really care what happened the rest of the week as long as you were ready to play on game day. And he was relaxed. I remember leading up to that year, he came and said to me, he said, "I'm going to add 5 years onto your career." I'm like, "What do you know?" But he meant the way I'm going to treat you, the way we're going to practice, and the fun. And it was absolutely accurate. It was absolutely a true statement, because we had more fun that year just messing around in practice, and he didn't care what was going on the side of the practice field, as long as when you were on the field, you got it done. So I remember we would be having total softball games, a full-on pickup softball game going on in the middle of practice when they're doing special teams or something. We'd be playing softball, or we'd be doing dunk contests on the goalposts and stuff. And it was just like completely refreshing that we could just relax and have that much fun, when most of the time the coaches be all high strung, and you can't be, you got to be standing a certain way. You can't be kneeling without your helmet on and stuff like that. So that's my best recollection of that year, was just relaxed practice, fun, with the exception that when it was game time, you strapped it on and went to work.
Could you dunk?
It was a 9-foot goalpost, so yeah, absolutely.
It's funny. I spoke to Anthony Calvillo a couple of days ago, and I asked AC. I said, Ben Cahoon, everybody knows, the hands, the clutch grabs, but give me some of the intangibles. What are some of the things that we didn't see that Ben did that really helped the group? And right away he smiled and said, he's a prankster, kept it light. You want to give me some of your gems, some of the best pranks that you may have come up with, whether they were that season or any other season?
You know what? It's not true.
Anthony's
lying. I got blamed for being the Reaper during training camp. I've never had anything to do with it, but I think maybe guilty by association or something. But one prank, just thinking about the stuff we were doing on the side of the field of practice. We had this goalpost, and there was a 9-foot post, and then a higher 10-foot post. And it was our goal all day to try to trick people to walk underneath the goalpost so we could dunk on them. And we would hang on the rim and just dunk on them and just embarrass them. And so I was just trying to egg them on. I'd put water bottles. I'd get the trainers and get all the water bottles from the trainer and put them right under the goalpost. So somebody was taking a break and needed a drink, they'd have to come to the goalpost, and then we'd dunk on them. And it was all just like everybody's just watching and looking and going crazy if somebody got dunked on and embarrassed. So it was just stuff like that, faking injuries so people would come under the goalpost, so we'd dunk on them. We dunked on coaches before, and it was just we had the green light from Don, and so just played into that.
You didn't dunk on Don, did you?
We dunked on his golf cart.
Jeez.
Absolutely. Yeah. No one was safe.
What specifically do you remember about your performance in that game? Because, I think from a catch and yard standpoint, it wasn't, the biggest numbers you put up, but you came up with some key, you had a key block on the Jermaine Copeland catch and run touchdown that sprung him free. What did you remember about the game you played in 2002?
Not a lot. It wasn't a big game for me personally, as far as stats go.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the way it is, that's the game of football at times. Sometimes your number's called, sometimes it's not. But that block was a definite highlight for me. First of all, just because it turned out to be a sweet block and a decleater, which doesn't happen very often. Just the physics were perfect. The stars were aligned, and it turned out to be a big block. So I like that highlight, a personal highlight, and it was just a fun atmosphere, great to be with your teammates and watch them making big time plays. Pat Woodcock's 99-yard run or catch and run was amazing. Jermaine's run after the catch on that touchdown was just sweet, and then just to see some of the mostly probably the defensive highlights were, but other than those catch and runs, the defense was the difference maker.
Do you have any recollection of how banged up AC was going into that game?
I do not.
Okay. Well, he talked about hurting I think he hurt his ankle or his foot going in the East Final, and he kind of gutted through the performance there. But again, from AC's perspective, I think even AC told me, he's like, Jermaine Copeland should have been the MVP, but that's typical AC, being humble and gutting through an injury and not really telling anybody until after it was all said and done, right?
Yeah, I didn't remember that. I don't doubt it. He lied about me being a prankster, but I don't think he's lying about that one.
Fair enough. So from your vantage point, I know it was low. It was 1-0, I think, in the second quarter when Woodcock had the record at the time catch and run. Do you remember where specifically you were on the field, and can you just take me through what you saw kind of unfold?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think I might have been the first one down to congratulate him after, so that's saying something. I used my wheels to get down there, but I did watch some game film leading up to this interview to refresh my memory, and I was nowhere to be found on that screen. So, I can't remember.
When did you realize that you guys had won the game? Was it, Strickland knocking down the 2-point conversion at the end? Was it when Copeland brought back the onside kick for a touch? Like, when did you realize, like, all right, we got it?
Well, Strickland, that saved the game right there, because obviously it would have extended the game, gone into overtime, and then it's anybody's ball game. But Strickland's play was when there's so much that still had to happen for Edmonton to ever get back in the game with an onside kick, and then one or two more plays. So Strickland's play it saved the game, and then Copeland's play at the end with the onside kick, that was just funny and just icing on the cake.
Like, Copeland was a guy, if I remember, like he was a little more outspoken, was a little more flamboyant, had the celebrations, whereas, you scored a million times, you handed the ball right back more often than not. But can you take me back to just being able to play with Jermaine Copeland, even though it was a short window before he left for Calgary in free agency? What was it like to be around that guy?
He was amazing. And it was back to the atmosphere that Don allowed, the culture we had there. Jermaine was just fun. He was just happy-go-lucky and loved to just let loose and have fun. So he brought that, and he probably was as responsible for, just screwing around and being relaxed and allowing everybody else to be relaxed and to have confidence. So that's a huge contribution that Jermaine brought. I think that year was just let loose and when it's time to play. But other than that, just enjoy yourself, get your work done, enjoy yourself, and don't be so high strung that you can't enjoy the journey.
Man, I wish I was at practice with all you guys, like between the, Copeland probably practicing his dances and you guys dunking on people. I wish I would have been in there a little more often. It sounded like it was a real fun group, and it kind of all came together for you guys at the right time. That's what it sounds like.
I got to find a picture. I will find a picture, Joey. I've got a picture of the wide receiver group. We created this day, and I don't know whose idea it was, where we wanted to everybody dressed up like Pat Woodcock. Pat Woodcock had he liked to dress up for games and practice. He was very particular about the wristbands and the armbands and the headbands and his outfit. He wore a bandana over his hair. And so one day we just decided we were all going to, without him knowing, we were going to dress up like Pat Woodcock. It was an honor. It was in honor of Pat. It was not mocking at all. And I got a picture of all of us dressed like Pat Woodcock. That is a classic. I'll send it to you. I'll find it tonight. I got it tonight.
I want to see that, because, and I remember, and I wish I still had the VHS, because I remember you, Jermaine Copeland, and I want to say it was 02. I'm trying to remember if it was 02 or 03, but you, Jermaine Copeland, Mark Menya, and there was somebody else. You guys dressed up as the TSN panel, and you imitated Jock Climbey, Matt Dunnigan, Chris Schultz, and I forget who the fourth person was on that, but I will remember that. I remember that clear as day. And I've been trying to find that online for years, and I can't find that. But you guys had done that before.
That's a good one. I'd forgotten about that. I don't know who the fourth one. Jock Climbey. I wonder if it was 2002. Jock was still. He wouldn't have been retired too much before then. So anyway, I think I've got that somewhere too. I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, if you find me, if you find that, let me know, because it was good. Ben, I appreciate
that's the kind of stuff that we just we're doing. It was a blast, and I can't say that we did that the rest of my career. That we had those characters and those puzzle pieces that were, just down for doing that. But definitely, Don Matthews established that kind of a culture that was acceptable, and it made a difference. Championship teams all have senses of humor, and we definitely had one there. But we also knew, when it was time to buckle up and get our work done.
So we spoke about Don. I have a couple more for you before I let you go. What role did Jim Pop play in assembling, that team that year, and also, leading up the rest of the way? I mean, you guys. We talked about the amount of Grey Cups you guys have been to. I remember, Ben, like the East Division was wrapped up late September, early October. I mean, you guys were in and out of the lineup, resting for the playoffs. I mean, you guys had a sustained success there. And so what role did Jim play in all that?
Oh, he's critical. He was the role. He's responsible for putting the team together, putting the coaching staff together, and Mr. Wettenhall was writing the checks, but it was Jim Pop that was orchestrating it all. So, and somewhere down the line, thankfully, there was a conscious decision to keep a core of guys together, Flory and Chu and myself and AC and to take care of us. And that's what made the whole thing so special is we had that group of guys, good human beings, that were able to play together for many, many years.
And the last one I have for you, can you take me through the post-game celebration, the ride back to Montreal, and then the parade? Because I skipped school that day, Ben. I was in my first year of high school. I remember it was freezing. And Dad allowed us to miss school. I'll never forget. It was my father, my brother, and my cousin and I. And it was cold, but man, I'm real glad I made it to that, because there was a lot of people out there.
Well, the parade, I don't remember much, significance of the plane ride home or anything. Everybody was probably sleeping because they stayed up all night. But that parade down St. Catherine Street was absolutely magical. I get emotional thinking about it. There's never been anything even close to it in my sports career. But the number of people that came out, it had been like 25 years since there was a Grey Cup championship in the city. But the number of people, the enthusiasm and the gratitude and the cheering that was going on was absolutely electric. And it just continued all the way down St. Catherine's, all the way to, I don't know where we ended up, Place des Arts or something. But it was ridiculous. And, nothing will ever match that as far as I can envision.
Hey, Ben, I appreciate the time, man. Really looking forward to seeing you and chatting on the 14th. So all the best until then. Safe travels here. And we'll be there. We'll be there on the 14th. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great to talk to you. I'll send the picture.
Yeah, please do. And if you can find that tape of you guys dressing up as the panel in the video there, I remember Matt Dunnigan was pretty offended that they went with you, who was, I guess, a smaller build than Matty had hoped for. I think he wanted Bruno Happel, but they put you in there. So that was, it was great. Yeah, if we could find that footage, we'd put it on the Owls website. I think people would get a kick out of that. But thank you.
Did TSN have it?
I don't know. I got to follow up with TSN. Maybe TSN might have that.
Dunnigan probably had it destroyed.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay. Take care. Thanks, Joy.
Merci encore une fois à Ben Cahoon qui s'est joint à nous en préparation pour cette célébration 20e anniversaire de la Coupe Grey qui a été gagnée en 2002 par les Alouettes de Montréal. Et écoute, c'était pas le début d'une dynastie, mais c'était quand même vers le début d'une dynastie. Écoute, c'était la deuxième fois en 3 ans que les Alouettes se sont présentés dans la Coupe Grey, dans le match de la Coupe Grey. Et c'était à ce moment-là où le parcours est commencé. Écoute, quand Ben Cahoon a pris sa retraite après la saison 2010, les Alouettes se sont rendus à 8 finales de la Coupe Grey en 11 ans. Et évidemment, ils en ont remporté 3 en 2002, en 2009 et en 2010. Donc, vraiment, évidemment, une très, très belle carrière pour Ben Cahoon, un des meilleurs receveurs de tous les temps. Et pour moi, à mon avis, c'est le meilleur receveur canadien de tous les temps dans la Ligue canadienne de football. So, that's it for this episode of the podcast. I mean, that was the start of something special. You can tell from Ben Cahoon's voice. It was a laid-back group. It was a group of players that were confident in 2002, and that kind of paved the way for what the Alouettes built the rest of the way. They went to 8 Grey Cups in 11 years after Ben Cahoon retired that 2010. That was that run. Ben Cahoon, while he was there, while AC was there, those guys went to 8 Grey Cups in 11 years, which is absolutely remarkable. So credit to them for really building that dynasty, winning 3 Grey Cups for the city of Montreal. But can't wait to celebrate on July the 14th that Grey Cup victory for the Montreal Alouettes. It's going to be a real special night, and I hope you'll join us at the stadium on July 14th. You can go to montrealalouettes.com to buy your tickets. Allez visiter alouettesdemontréal.com pour acheter vos billets. Merci beaucoup et bonne semaine.